She'll do that job, which is pretty awesome. Okay. Ready?
I have to stay awake.
Is it supposed to be? Oh yeah, it's supposed to be. Okay, here we go. Moms have superpowers. Did you know this? Right? What are those? I wrote them down. Oh yeah. What are some superpowers that moms have? Do you know?
Eyes in the back of their head.
They've got eyes in the back of their head. That's
Mind
right.
reading.
Who was it?
Mind reading.
Mind reading. Excellent. Multitasking. Yeah. There's actually brain changes about multitasking that moms get that other people don't get. Did you know sorry, that's what you say when you don't have a citation for the research. They found that, no, but it is real research. I heard it on the radio a long time ago. So they tested mice. You can look this up yourself for a citation. They tested mice doing a maze, right? And then after birth, so they tested a group of mice that were never moms and a group of mice that had given birth, and the ones that had given birth were better maze solvers. There are brain changes that give you more problem-solving abilities after you have a kid. Isn't that trippy? So, that's pretty cool. Okay, but then I'm supposed to say, before I get off on that the biggest superpower that moms have is that they are the goddess. Where is she? She's somewhere up here, right? Is there a goddess up there?
Yes.
That's mom, right? And what's cool is that their words are the holy writ for the children, right? You may not notice that because sometimes, especially at 2 or 3 years old, the kids act as if you weren't God. I am God of my own self and my kingdom. But in fact, the words of the goddess are being inscribed into their very neurology. Inscribed into their very neurology. Ooh, there it is, neurology. This, I think we have a picture of the hippocampus. It was supposed to be the hippocampus. At least we have some hippocampus in there somewhere. What does the hippocampus do? Does any of our neuropsychologists in here remember what the hippocampus does? What do you think, Jeannie?
All I know is taxi drivers in London have big hippocampus.
Do they? So there's probably some direction-spatial awareness or something like that. Well, one thing that the hippocampus does is it helps to moderate your stress response. It helps to moderate your stress response. So I searched around for some cool research on what different nurturing styles do to your brain. And what I found was that, let's see, where is it? Kids that are, so children of mothers who have a style which is more nurturing rather than scolding or ignoring, right? They took people into a lab and they had this brightly colored present there, and they told the kids now you can open this, but only after your mom is done with this task that we've given her, right? And so some moms were very encouraging to their child. Oh, honey, just wait for a few minutes, and the kid would come over. Can I now? No, I love you, but you're going to have to wait. I have to do this task, right? Other moms were a little more calm down, or Mom, can I now? And they would just kind of ignore that and stick to the task. And then, so they tested the brains of these kids later, and the ones whose moms had a more reassuring and nurturing style actually grew a larger hippocampus, right? They had a larger center in their physical brain for dealing with stress. And this is very cool. On the sadder side of the story, children who have lived with abuse are more prone to depression, more prone to PTSD, things like this. And they actually have a smaller hippocampus if you study their brain. Amazing. So mom is it's not just this cute thing to say that the mother is the goddess. No, really, the way you act, the things that you model if you are a mother or the nurturing figure in your child's life really determines who they are. It's like a voice from above. Okay, so on Mother's Day, I always try to be inclusive because some households in our congregation will have 2 moms, right? Or 2 dads and no mom. Or I know some households that have 2 moms and a dad. And that's really cool. But then somehow in the modern age, to just come in and sort of act like, well, it's Mother's Day and we all do this like this, leaves some of us like they might smile at coffee hour, but some of us feel maybe subtly not really part of it, right? Others of us are still healing from the trauma that our own mothers inflicted on us, or that we inflicted on our own mothers and are still guilty for, or something along those lines. And so I don't want to miss out on the Mother's Day fervor of love that could blossom forth, and then at the same time I don't ever want to like kick anybody up. Like, you know, we all love Mother's Day, right, kids? Because we don't all love Mother's Day. One of my friends said she went to the store this morning, and it was the most men she had ever seen. And it's this thing that, like, because today is Mom's Day off, right? But it's also a little weird because a lot of the moms work just as long hours or as hard or more hours as the dads. And yet, they're the ones you see in Whole Foods, right? So there's this kind of weird thing of like, yes, the goddess nurturer archetype who's also become the hunter and the protector and all of this stuff, and they get one day a year to sleep in. And that's just weird. So I wanted to bring all of that in. And the best way that I thought to do that would be to like just kind of teach meditation about moms and skip over the whole holiday. Don't tell the congregation that. I'm just going to say. Oh, and last but not least, many of the people who have a great relationship with their mom aren't even going to be here because brunch. So, you know, I got to speak to everybody else. Okay, the good news is that whether you are rehabbing your brain from a childhood challenging situation, or whether you are just wanting to upgrade your brain, you know, some of you might be scared, like, am I one of those with a smaller hippocampus? That's not the thing I want you to walk away with. The thing I want you to walk away with is that we can upgrade our own hippocampi. I'm not sure my Latin plurals. So hippocampi grow through things like taking a walk. 45-minute walk 3 times a week, you get a bigger hippocampus. That's cool. Another thing that works great on human brains is the practice of kindness and compassion. So today, we're going to learn a little ancient yogi practice related to mothers and meditating on kindness and compassion. And it's going to be really fun, okay? I think probably... Yes! Okay, so here's another super mom. She looks kind of like one of those Tibetan bodhisattvas or something like that. So this method that we're going to learn it's from an old Buddhist master, and they call it the 7-step cause and effect method. You don't have to remember that to grow a bigger hippocampus. But if you have a bigger hippocampus, you probably will remember that, so it's nice. Because they say there are these 7 steps, and each one is supposed to cause the next one. And we'll get into that a little bit more, why that's cool as we go along. So step 1, let's see, step 2, we have to start with step 2, and we'll go back to step 1. Because step 1 is weird and ancient Indian, and we have to lay a foundation for it. So step 2 is called reflecting on your mother's kindness. Okay? So if you had a kind mother, this is supposed to be easy for you, right? Is there anybody who wants to self-identify as this is easy for me? I can just sit down and be like, my mom, this is great. Okay? So for some of us, and at some times, it's easy, and you can call this up. So the first part of this meditation, the reason they use mom, is that if you think about all of this stuff, like mom has an enormous job. And this is the inclusive part. Like maybe there's a man in your life who plays the job of mom, right? Or maybe it was an aunt or an uncle or a grandma or a grandpa, right? So it's not just bio mom, right? Some people have a bio mom who's different than their actual mom, right? We want the one who mommed you. That's a verb. If I could say hippocampi,
It is
I
now.
would say mommed. Okay, so you think of the one who mommed you, right? And then it should get a little bit easier, right? If you had someone who mommed you, then we bring to mind what it takes to raise up a human being, right? Like, have you contemplated this lately? Like, all the stuff. So just think about, if you've raised a kid, you know this, right? I didn't bring the estimate of how many hundreds of thousands of dollars it takes for that 18 years.
245.
Thank you. $245,000, right?
It's supposed to end after 18?
We're the Unitarian Universalist tradition. We don't deal in supposed twos. But if it only went for 18, then you'd only have to pay, the price of a Ferrari and its gas or something like that. Right? So 245,000. And then with that, like the time hours of the first year is a sleep deprivation experiment, where you're going through all this hallucinatory, ecstatic states, and it's totally weird, and then there's like, they can't tie their shoes, they can't, you have to like buy a special blender, or go to that special aisle in the supermarket, and then if you want non-GMO, then you have to have a blender, and like all of this stuff, and that just goes on, and then they start to fall in love, or wonder about, if drugs are cool, or something like that. That's stressful, okay? And moms just do it, like moms, whoever has to play that role, is you don't really get a break, do you? I mean, maybe if you can afford a nanny, but then the price tag goes up to $500,000 for 18 years. So the first step is, this comes from the science on gratitude, if we look at it from a modern perspective. The ancients said, remember your mother's kindness. But one of the things that we found, gratitude's good for your brain. People who practice gratitude are happier. And one of the ways to get grateful is to not take stuff for granted, right? So these ancient meditators, somebody once had this great idea that like, wow, how would you feel about your life? And your relation, even if you don't like your mom so much, like if you remember that for, 6 to 50 years, like they were there for you, on call, 24 hours a day, right? Or maybe somebody was, maybe you only had somebody who was on call 8 hours a day. That's quite, like we, at least in the Bay Area, we demand high salaries for that kind of work, right? And the only salary mom gets is maybe that one day when dad takes the kids to Whole Foods, like gluten-free pancake mix. So, remembering your mother's kindness. Simple, easy, we've got it, okay? And you can do this if you're not sure about the mom thing. We modern teachers always have to do this because like some moms were really not that great, a lot of them were, thank goodness. But if you weren't sure about the mom thing, you just think of somebody who can give you those warm fuzzies inside. Let me see if warm fuzzies is the next. So somebody who can give you the somebody who makes you feel like that. And then let's get rid of like, whether it's nice or you're a good citizen or a good son. I was going to wear a tie today to like have a good citizen outfit on or something. Let's get rid of all that and just think of what happens to your own brain. And then what might happen to that relationship. Like what kind of kindness, even if you don't dig the person, if you just remember that like they at least spent that 5 hours a day or something like that, like, making you food, how much more kindness might be inside of you and inside of the world due to your reflecting on the 1,000-armed goddess who is mom, right? Okay, so that's step 2. Step 1 is called, let me go 2 forward, ready? 1, 2. I just had to throw this one in here. Nothing gives me the warm fuzzies like when you side with my mother against me. Okay, back to the kitty, please. It had warm fuzzies on mom, and it was appropriate. So step 1 in this ancient meditation is called, classically it's called recognizing that all beings have been your mother. Recognizing that all beings have been your mother. So to So these old yogis and Buddhists, they believed in reincarnation. So this was, oh yeah, I'll make my mother. We don't, in the modern world, necessarily subscribe to this viewpoint. And there are actually a few holes in the debate in case you want to study ancient Buddhism someday. We can debate it out. Have all beings your mother? But here's the trick of why this is important. There's this great story about Jesus in the Bible. He's visiting, he went back and visited Bethlehem. And apparently he wasn't able to do any miracles there because everybody was like, oh yeah, that's just a carpenter's son. Right? But he's in, talking to somebody or giving a teaching on the Holy Scriptures or something like that. And these people come to him and they say, hey, Jesus, your mom and your brothers are outside. And he says he was actually kind of a radical guy, but the Bible writes it kind of enigmatically. Who is my mother? And who are my brothers? And the way many of us interpret this is that Jesus might have been talking about that inside of us, we have a tendency to, some of us have gotten good at loving when it comes to our family and our Unitarian Universalist fellowship or our state. I love California, but don't take me down to Georgia or something like that. And it can be very difficult in terms of human development to start to expand that circle of love outward. Right? Maybe not for those of us who are here, but if you see in the world, what sometimes they call it tribalism, sometimes they call it nationalism, right? This idea that there's a certain group of people who are worthy of love, and there's another group of people who, let them take care of themselves. So step one is meant in this ancient meditative science to start to stretch out that boundary. And what they say is very, very strange. So here I want to ask you, have you ever had a friend, the controversial mother topic, have you ever had a friend who gave you the warm fuzzies? Show us the kitty. Oh, the kitty's still up. Good. Have you ever had a friend that gave you the warm fuzzies? Please raise your hand if you ever had a friend that gave you the warm fuzzies, or like a spouse or something like that, right? Okay. Now, have you ever had an experience with a friend who gave you the warm fuzzies and then that went away? Right? Like they did some vicious act of betrayal at the age of 13 when vicious acts of betrayal happen, and the warm fuzzies in the space of a day, they were like, wow, gone. No more fuzzies for you. Okay. This kitty, not talking to you. Talk to the paw, okay? So first parts aren't listening. Okay, how about the other way? That you met somebody, let's say you were acquaintances for a couple of years or something, right? You met them at on Mother's Day, you had to do the shopping at Whole Foods because Mom was sleeping in, you met them, and oh, hey, you do the shopping on Mother's Day too, great. And then 2 years later, you're sitting down, you meet each other at a coffee shop by happenstance, and you're like, wait, we like the same things, we have the same, you want to save the world? I want to save the world. Did we just become best friends? Wow! And then overnight, Kitty appears within your heart. Has anybody ever had that experience? Right? So these thought exercises are to try to show us that you never know who is going to provide those warm and fuzzies. You never know who is going to provide those warm and fuzzies. There are a couple of, they're all kind of dark movies, but I want to recommend them to you if your nervous system isn't too highly sensitive. One, has anybody ever seen this movie called Memento? With the lady from The Matrix, and so there's this guy, he has this specific kind of amnesia that wipes out his memory after, 72 minutes or some plot significant number, right? And so he has these relationships with people, he's taking Polaroid things and writing himself notes about it. But then the thing is, if he loses this picture, the person can come in and be like, oh yes, we've been having this love relationship for the last 3 years, and this happened and this happened, and all of a sudden the guy's having this total experience of that relationship, right? Because he doesn't have any memory to tell him to the contrary. And it's kind of a dark and twisted film noir, sometimes it calls this, right? So don't watch it if you don't like that kind of stuff. There's another great dark movie called Dark City. Did anybody ever see Dark City with Kiefer Sutherland? No, okay, a little more fringy. No. Okay, spoiler alert, so sorry. But there, there's like these, some kind of people have like taken a portion of humanity captive, and they can inject them with this thing that like makes them amnesiac, and like gives them different memories, and they're like experimenting on people. So they wake up in this household, and like, this is now your wife, and these are your kids, right? And they have all of this like official memory, that this is how it's gone. What in the world does this have to do with Mother's Day? Well, let me tell you. Next, 2 slides forward, please, assistant. Excellent. These kind of thought experiments, or who saw The Matrix? Did anybody see this movie, The Matrix? This was sort of a, certain people who study art and its relationship to human development and culture would say that that's kind of like an symbolic turning, where the premise of this is that you could create an entire world of sensations just by feeding input into your brain, right? And then now there's some interesting fringe science, mainstream science, but it's sort of not well known, studies that say like you might be living in a hologram, right? And like what's cool, philosophers have talked about this for years, is like, how would you know? Really, like if we can take electrodes and stimulate your brain and you like taste peanut butter, or we can take transcranial magnetism and like make you see stuff by magnets on the outside of your head, how would you know that this isn't all a projection? Okay, high philosophy, great. The thing that these meditators, freak not, it's real, we're cool. What these ancient practitioners were saying was to try to stretch into the notion that the warm fuzzies you feel are not coming from out there, but are rather coming from in here. Right? You don't only have to feel those about your mom, right? You don't only have to feel that about your tribe. You don't only have to feel that about your fellowship. To a certain degree, it's arbitrary, right? And so rather than this is talking about sort of the dark side, like you could wake up an amnesiac and not know who to love. On the other way, you could hack your own nervous system and love more and more people. And that love would be totally valid and authentic. You could paste these masks onto whoever you wanted. So in the ancient practice, and I would recommend you try this, not necessarily subscribing to reincarnation. I'm not trying to teach Buddhism, I'm just trying to steal their ideas and repackage them as my own. But try it as looking around, do it now, okay? Look around the room and imagine that in a past life, or something that you don't remember, this person was the one who like gave you little coochie-coos and like spent the 18-hour days like changing your clothes and teaching you how to talk. Like you wouldn't be able to, they took like the wolf boy in France, like didn't know how to talk, couldn't wear clothes, didn't wash himself, right? That's all on whoever did that. And so they say, if you can paste that idea onto these folks, you start to have this interesting altered state happen, right? And it really works. It changes your brain. You don't even have to believe in reincarnation. You just have to do that voluntary suspension of disbelief, like going to the movies, right? I didn't believe Iron Man last night was really fighting with Black Panther, right? Well, anyway, he fought Captain America. I didn't believe either of those guys were really there. I didn't believe that there's super soldier serum in America and Russia that they haven't had since the 30s. I didn't believe any of that. And yet, my nervous system really got to see those guys do their thing. And it was cool. I learned some stuff, and it was really fun. So similarly, if you were to practice this, you would find yourself like driving down the highway, and you're just practicing, oh yes, my mother from a former life. And this sensation wells up in your heart as if they actually are your mom. Like warm fuzzies authentically occur. And this is really cool because what we find is that the more warm fuzzies you are having, the more resilient your nervous system becomes. Good deal. So it's very selfish, and yet it can change the world. What's the next slide? If there's anything world changing. Oh, yes. Okay, so this is I typed in space age caveman on my computer, and this is the slide that I found. So they say if you have a clock when it's being used for filming.
11:24.
Oh, good, 6 whole minutes. Okay, so they say if you practice this recognition of your mother's kindness, then gradually you'll move into step 3 and 4 and 5, etc. They call it the cause and effect method, which means the more gratitude you feel, there's studies that have been done on this, and it's really cool. The more grateful and nurtured and secure a person feels, the kinder they tend to be. Right? It goes the other way too. If you go out being kind, you feel grateful. But today we want to think of if you just reflect on mom's kindness, right? And maybe buy flowers or do the thing I'm going to recommend to you in a minute. You actually start becoming a sweeter person. Your ethics changes in observable ways just by cultivating gratitude and warm fuzzies in your heart. Why is this crucial? Because we are this space age caveman. Okay? We're in the information age or the technology age or the information economy, space age, I think is what we're in, right? So we have like communication can travel around the world at the speed of thought, practically. And yet, most of us haven't upgraded how we communicate with each other for about 10,000 years. Right? Writing's been around 5 to 10,000 years. Right? And that's the last great development in human communication. We still get snipey because we let lower parts of our brain structures override the rest of it. And then relationships get ruined. People come with all of their past grievances and veils of past pain and projections, and they slap it onto peace negotiations, and the peace negotiation goes nowhere, not because of the people that are sitting there, but because of what happened 60 years ago, or what happened 2,000 years ago in my people's history, right? We need a drastic upgrade in the caveman operating system. Oh, you're still running caveman OS? There's an upgrade, okay? And the 7-fold cause and effect method is one of these ways to upgrade. Because when you see the other person as, oh, that's the meditation. If the seeing the measure mother doesn't resonate with you, you try to think, this could be my new best friend. This, Katie, she could be my new best friend. Once upon a time, it wasn't very spiritual of me, but once upon a time, I was interacting with this person, and then with a person, somebody came over and told me they were like a millionaire or something like that, and all of a sudden I noticed that my way of interacting changed with them. Right? So, not very spiritual, I know, but I was like, oh, maybe they'll give a grant to my academy. Oh, be respectful, huh? And what that showed me, I was spiritual later. What it showed me was that we never know who anybody is. We look at them as, oh, that's not my best friend. So if we just change the construct of, that could be my new best friend. Huh. How might your heart change, and how might that change your activities in the world? So, oh, that's nice. Okay, I don't remember why that slide was in there. Oh, so we have a lot of speech going on in the world that's not very hard to find. Caveman OS says the way to get people to behave, the way to get them to stand up and be upright and good citizens is, well, you could sanction them, you could punish them, you could kill them and their families. We could target their families, and then they would get in line and behave. And perhaps, don't take me as supporting that kind of ideology, but perhaps on a symptomatic level, some protective action needs to be taken. But like we talked about last week, that doesn't address the cause. Violence comes from too small a hippocampus. Violence comes from a misfiring anterior cingulate gyrus. Violence comes from too much blood in the limbic system and not enough blood in the neocortex. And that's all the brain words I will do for right now. Meditating on compassion, giving people the resources they need to feel safe and nurtured and to love each other, expands the part of your brain that allow you to make better decisions. So one of the best things that we could do this Mother's Day is not only take our mother out for brunch after the church service, thank you for being here this morning, but we can think about how do we care for the mothers around the world. Mother is the goddess that teaches you how to live. If mom is stressed, if mom is snappy, if mom is scolding or ignoring, usually because of the life circumstances, she's imprinting that on the brain of her child. This is the child who will become a leader in a world where communication is speeding up even faster. In a world where these, $3 trillion fighter jets or things like that only cost $2 trillion in a few years as, cost effective. And we're more able to bomb each other, we're more able to shout each other, and there are bigger comments sections on articles on the internet. We need desperately to upgrade our caveman OS, and I say we bring it to the mothers. So, what can you do? Well, there are mothers here, but there are also mothers right here in the South Bay who are working 2 or 3 jobs just to be able to afford an overpriced house in which to put their kids. Maybe watch the kids while they take a shower. It's not big things that have to happen, and yet the qualitative difference in that mom's life will change that child's life forever. And then my last recommendation before we run completely over time is find something like the International Rescue Committee. Has anybody ever heard of the International Rescue Committee? IRC.org, probably something like that. So what I like to do for Mother's Day is last year they had these kits that you can send for pregnant moms in places where basically they don't have any clean water, and they'll send her soap and a towel, and it costs about $3, right? Think of what, if you had $24, think of what you could do for someone who doesn't have water. These are powerful Mother's Day gifts, not instead of a beautiful bouquet of roses, but with this expanding heart, including the kindness we feel for our mom, or the dad who had to be mom, or the aunt who was our second mom, or whoever it was, and bringing that out to the entirety of Silicon Valley. Silicon, thanks. It's like Worcester. Silicon Valley, and then out to the entire globe. Okay, there was some great last line. In a world where technology has increased the speed of our communication, but not our skill and empathy, everything good starts with the nurturer, the ancient archetypal goddess, also known as Mom. So, if you would please stand with us and we'll sing a song in the spirit. It's